The low rumble of the excavator fills the air, drowning out the gasps and shouts from the crowd gathered on the sidewalk. I'm standing there, arms crossed, watching as the machine's steel jaws rip through the manicured banks of Willow Creek's pride, enjoy their precious community, upon turning it into a churning mess of mud and broken dreams. Mrs. Clara Thompson, the HOA president, is clutching her designer scarf like it's a lifeline, her face pale as she watches 30,000 gallons of crystal-clear water gurgle down the storm drain, gone forever. 6 months ago, Clara and her HOA cronies stood right here, smug as could be, slapping me with a $300 fine for docking my fishing boat at my own lake house. They thought they had me cornered, thought their little rulebook gave them the power to control my life. Now, as the pond they loved so much turns into a swampy pit, they're the ones looking helpless, and I can't lie, it feels good. Real good. This isn't just about a pond. It's about what happens when you push someone too far, when you forget that every rule has a loophole, and every bully eventually meets someone who fights back. Let me take you back to how this all started. After 25 years grinding away in a cubicle, I finally saved enough to buy my dream home, a cozy lake house on the edge of Willow Creek, a quiet little suburb in upstate New York. The place was perfect, 2 acres of waterfront, a private dock stretching out into the glassy water of Lake Serenity, and not a shared inch of shoreline in sight. The realtor kept going on about the privacy, the seclusion, how this was my slice of paradise. And for the first month, it was. I'd sit on the deck every morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise turn the lake into a painting of gold and pink. My Boata beat-up 22-foot fishing rig I named Second Chance sat at the dock, ready for lazy afternoons chasing bass or just drifting under the stars. The neighbors seemed nice enough, waving as they walked their dogs or tended their lawns. It felt like I'd finally made it, like I'd found my peace. Then the letter showed up. It was in a crisp envelope with the Willow Creek Homeowners Association logo stamped on it, looking all official. Inside was a violation notice that hit me like a punch to the gut. Docking my boat at my private dock was against community standards for unauthorized marine equipment. The fine was $300, with $50 tacked on every day until I corrected the issue. I read it 3 times, thinking it had to be a mistake. I owned the dock, the shoreline, the whole damn stretch of water. Every document proved it. The deed, the survey, even the listing photos from when I bought the place showed that dock, clear as day. So I marched down to the HOA office, a little brick building by the community entrance, ready to clear this up. The receptionist, a sweet kid named Jenny, was as confused as I was. She dug through this massive binder of bylaws, flipping pages about lawn heights and paint colors, but couldn't find a single rule about boats or docks. She promised to bring it up at the next board meeting, and I left thinking it was just a mix-up, an honest mistake. Boy, was I wrong. The board meeting was held in the community center, a stuffy room with folding chairs and a long table where the HOA board sat like they were judging the fate of the world. Clara Thompson, the president, ran the show with this icy precision, her silver hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She and the other 4 board members, guys like Ed Larson, a retired accountant with a permanent scowl, and Linda Brooks, who always carried a notebook like she was taking minutes for the Pentagon, listened as I laid out my case. I brought everything: the deed, the survey, the bylaws. I explained how the dock was mine, how the boat wasn't hurting anyone, how this whole thing made no sense. The room went quiet when I finished, and I thought, okay, they get it. They'll back off. Then Clara leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and said, "Mr. Davis, while you may own the dock, the lake is a shared aesthetic resource. Your boat disrupts the visual harmony of our community and poses environmental risks." Ed chimed in, muttering about noise pollution, and Linda nodded like she'd just heard the gospel. They were making it up on the spot, pulling rules out of thin air, but they said it with such confidence that the other residents in the room started nodding along. I tried to argue, pointed out that everyone knew about the dock when they bought their houses, that it was in every real estate listing for my property, but Clara just waved me off. Past enforcement was lax, she said. We're stricter now. The vote was unanimous. The fine stood, and they even tacked on $600 for legal research costs. I walked out of there feeling like I'd been mugged. Things got worse from there. The fines kept coming, each one with fancier legal jargon, threatening liens on my property if I didn't comply. Clara started showing up at my house, clipboard in hand, writing up violations for the dumbest things. My garbage can was too visible from the street. My marigolds were too bright for the neighborhood's earthy palette. One time, she cited me for my deck chairs being arranged in a visually cluttered manner. I'm not kidding. I hired a lawyer, Sarah Mitchell, who confirmed the HOA had no legal ground to stand on. My property rights were ironclad, but she also warned me, fighting these people would be a war of attrition. They had the HOA's budget, everyone's monthly duesto burned through, while I'd be draining my retirement savings. It wasn't just about the boat anymore. It was personal. Clara and her crew were out to control me, to break me. I wasn't going to let that happen. I started digging, spending hours at the county clerk's office, pulling every record I could find on Willow Creek. I learned the neighborhood was built in the 80s by a developer called Horizon Homes, who promised all sorts of fancy amenities, trails, a clubhouse, and that big community pond with its fancy fountain. But a recession hit, and most of those plans got scrapped. The pond was built, but its ownership got messy. Horizon went bankrupt, and the pond ended up in a trust that fizzled out in the 90s. By some miracle, I found out it was now owned by a land management company and it was for sale. 3 acres, including the pond, the walkways, the fountain, all of it, listed at a price I could afford. Clara and the HOA had no idea they didn't own it. They'd been maintaining it for years, spending thousands of our dues, thinking it was theirs. I called the listing agent, Diane Carter, and played it cool, posing as an investor interested in waterfront opportunities. Within a week, I had a deal. I hired a surveyor to confirm the boundaries, and sure enough, I'd own every inch of that pond, plus the bridge, the benches, even the fountain's wiring. The closing was set for mid-May, right before the HOA's big Memorial Day Festival and annual bash Clara had been planning for months, complete with food trucks, a band, and fireworks over the pond. I didn't say a word. Let them plan their party. The day of the closing, I felt like I was in a movie. I signed the papers, and just like that, the pond was mine. I hired a fencing crew and an excavation team, got all the permits, and waited. That Saturday morning, as families started gathering for the festival, my crew rolled in. Chain-link fences went up in under an hour, and the excavators started draining the pond. Clara marched over, her face redder than a fire truck, demanding to know what was going on. I handed her the deed and said, "I'm the new owner, Clara. This is my property now, and I'm redecorating." "You can't do this," she shrieked, her clipboard shaking. "This is our pond." "Check the records," I said. "You've been trespassing for years." The crowd watched in stunned silence as the water vanished, leaving a muddy crater where their ducks used to swim. The fountain sputtered out, the bridge sat useless, and Clara's precious festival collapsed. She tried to negotiate, offered to drop the fines, pay for permits, even buy the land back. I just shook my head. This wasn't about money. It was about teaching them a lesson. By afternoon, the pond was gone. In its place was a raw, ugly pit, a scar on their perfect little neighborhood. Property values tanked overnight. Residents were furious, packing the community center that night to yell at Clara and the board. They had no answers, no recourse. My permits were legit, my ownership airtight. I'd won. The next weekend, I added one final two-cha tacky, pink flamingo fountain that honked every hour, loud enough to echo through Willow Creek. Every time it went off, I'd sit on my deck, boat still at my dock, and smile. They'd never mess with me again. Looking back, I wonder if I went too far. Was it justice or just revenge? I stood up to a bully, but I hurt a lot of innocent people in the process. What do you think? Should I have fought quieter, or was this the only way to make them listen? Drop a comment. Share your thoughts. I am curious to hear what you'd have done. And if you've got your own HOA horror story, let's hear it. Maybe we can all learn something from this mess.